I remember there always being stories being told, like when a guy is getting ready to go home, and then the guy will say, man, I feel like this is a joke. like, like they're gonna call me up there, and then as soon as I get to the door, they're gonna tell you, no, we just playing. Go ahead and go back up in there. And I'm like, man, how are you gonna sit here, bro? They're calling you out to leave. Like, why would you think it's a joke? And he'd be like, I don't, like, it's just the feeling. And it wasn't until that day, like the night previous to the day I was getting out, or I was walking out the doors, that I knew exactly what he was talking about. Because I kept having like visions like, man, I'm gonna get up there with all my shit, and they finna say this is a joke. Like, how would I react? Because there had just been a guy a couple months prior that he was literally he was let to walk out the door. He was released. However, they ran back and got him because one of the programs that he was supposed to take, he hadn't taken. And the parole board wanted him to do it, but they missed it at the day of his parole. And they just had realized that he had a deferral. So they literally let him walk out the door in his own clothes, and they walked back and got him and brought him back in. So it was like, with me being so close and then having that, man, hey, we'll go back out there and snatch your ass up.
Tell me a little bit about yourself, Adam.
Well, my name is Adam Kouraimi. When I was 15 in December of 2000, I committed an armed robbery and went to prison for 19 years. And, it was rough. Well, my dad left when I was 5. The guy that my mom ended up getting with, like, he wasn't like a father figure type at all, And so when I turned about 13, I started hanging around with my cousin, who was my introduction into like hanging out in the streets and everything. I started smoking cigarettes and smoking weed and drinking, started running with gangs, and then it came to a point where I just stopped coming home for nights at a time, just doing stuff that a bad kid does, such as like, I just started stealing from everybody, breaking into cars and stealing radio systems. And it's funny, this is how I learned to put my own stereo in my car. It's everything like culminated from stealing, breaking into houses, breaking into cars, until finally kind of like took it a step further where, I ended up breaking into a house and robbing an individual with 3 other guys. It kind of just escalated from there. Got together. One of the guys said that he knew where a safe was. Yeah, that was it. It's all I heard as far as I was concerned at that point. Like, there's a safe there? Okay. How are we doing this? So, we started talking about it, and we ended up doing it that night. Then I ended up going to do something. I can't remember what it was, but when I came back, the other 3, they were gone. So I'm like, it's like 11:30, 12 o'clock. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, where did these guys go? And it's like, oh, damn, they must have already went. So they left first. That's what I was assuming. So I followed. And sure enough, when I got there, they were already there. I opened up the door. One of the guys was standing there, with a billy club ready to hit me because he didn't know who it was. When he realized who it was, like, I can't remember if he said something or I said something or whatever, but we ended up hearing some hollering upstairs. And so we both went upstairs, and the other 2 had an older gentleman sitting in a chair yelling at him for the combination to the safe. And it's crazy because you don't think about stuff like this, during the situation. At least it never occurred to me. One of the guys was threatening him with a cane, screaming at him for the the combination. If I remember correctly, he remembered the combination, but they couldn't get it open. And then the man, he was like, I got it written down in my wallet. So one of the guys grabbed it. Finally, I tried to get it. I still didn't get it. So, finally somebody got it open. I picked up the cane and I started threatening him about like anything else he might have in the house. One of the other guys had walked out and went to his bedroom, came back with some firearms. We emptied the safe. The guy that found the firearms, he ended up leaving. But me and the other two, before we left, we tied him to the chair. I ended up taking an American flag and wrapping it around his face. And the irony of that is this guy was 72 years old. I didn't know till later on, but to be honest, it probably wouldn't have mattered anyways, because he was a World War II vet. So after I put the blindfold around his face, we took his keys off his kitchen table and took his car. And we left. The guy that was driving, he dropped us off. He said he was going to go ditch the car. It's crazy because I'm sitting here playing. I just did this, and here I am, like not even 2 hours later, I'm laying down on the floor playing Need for Speed Hot Pursuit for PlayStation. You know what I'm saying? Like what just happened didn't happen. I just started seeing like movement out the corner of my eye, and I look and I see like different like red, white, and blue lights on the wall instead coming through the window. So, and mind you, me and the other two are sitting in the living room. And we end up going to look out the windows, and here he is, the guy that went to ditch the car. He's standing behind a cop car in handcuffs. One cop's talking to him, and there was another cop car parked behind him. And that cop, he was taking pictures of the ground, snow, footprints, and all that. I can't honestly tell you why I didn't run. I think it was more we knew they knew where we were at, and so it was like. I think I had this like crazy, like stupid notion that, well, maybe they'll just leave. That happened, and I'd say about an hour after we saw the cops outside, that's when they rolled up, and because they never left, and they rolled up, busted in the house, and they had. I still feel like a piece of shit for this because they just couldn't arrest me like they could the others. They could only arrest me in front of my guardian or my parent. So they literally had to take me home at like 2, 3 in the morning. I had to wake my mom up out of her sleep to tell her that the police was here to arrest me. I still remember it like, I went and woke my mom up and I said, hey, the police are here. And she was like, what? I was like, yeah, the police are here, they want to talk to you. I came back out, cop was standing in the living room. Didn't have me in cuffs or anything. So my mom came out in, her nightgown, her sleeping gown, and she sat down. Back then when I was watching it, like it was, like she didn't really have no reaction. But I realize now that it was just like shock. Like, waking up 3 o'clock in the morning, completely unexpectedly, by a cop and, telling her that he's got to arrest me for, breaking and entering. But it was just enough to get me within the juvenile system. So, yeah, put the handcuffs on me. Mom's not was like void of reaction. And he took me outside, put me in the car, and took me to the police station. I sat there until, I sat there probably till like 8 o'clock until they transported me to the juvenile. And then I got flooded into the system. I got there December 8th, 2000. I stayed there till January 28th, I believe, where, I pled guilty. And once I pled guilty, they shipped me to the county jail for a month until they sentenced me. But I remember when they first transferred me to the county jail, I called my mom and let her know what happened because she didn't even know I got transferred. I was messed up in the head. Like I was scared. I'm in the county jail. Like despite having the cell to myself, like, this was all new. So my mom ended up calling the county jail and told them that she was afraid that I was gonna hurt myself, and they ended up taking me out of the cell and putting me down in the booking area where they got a camera, and it's basically like when people come in after getting arrested and they waiting to bail out or something, they stick them in these little rooms, and that's one of the rooms that they put me in for the entire time I was there. I couldn't, order food. I couldn't watch TV, couldn't read. I didn't have access to books. I ain't had none of that stuff. I was just stuck in a cell, waiting for the 3 meals to come by. Yeah, it was that was a time. I ended up turning into a nocturnal creature during that time because the light was always on and there was nothing to do but just sit there. I kind of just started sleeping the day away and then staying up all night because that's when the action happened. Right? So I'm writing booking, everybody that comes to jail, they come straight through there. So I saw drunks, couples fighting each other, and when the hole was right down the hall, I seen them pull a guy out one day. It was late at night, and it was just blood all over the floor. He had tried to kill himself. And still to this day, they don't know how he lost that much blood because it was just, and he was still alive. But after it was cleaned up, it was just back to normal. And it's funny the things you remember.
So was there a trial?
No, it didn't even get that far. Pleading guilty, I'd be getting between 5 to 7 or 4 to 7 or 4 to 6 or 5 to 7 as a minimum. With the charges that I ended up having at the end of the day, she slapped me with 17 for the armed robbery and the safe breaking, and then 12 for the home invasion and conspiracy, and then 2 flat for the felony firearms. So altogether, it's 19 to 30 years. And it's it's funny because she, after she sentenced me, she was like, I just want you to know, Mr. Kouraimi, that you'll still be a relatively young man when you get out of prison. And I'm sitting here thinking, I'm 15. And in my head, I'm like, man, I'm gonna be old as fuck. You telling me you're gonna send me to prison for more time than I've been out in the world? Make that statement make sense to me.
So you and your family must have been blindsided.
I did blindsided. The funny thing is, when you get sentenced, the judge, before they sentence you, they ask you, has anybody promised you anything, and da-da-da-da-da, and, is anybody forcing you to take this plea, and I answered no to all of them, and I don't know why.
Did you see him in court?
I did. He came to court. He gave his statement on what happened, how he felt, and
did that hit you?
Not then.
Did you ever reach out to him or write him or anything?
I wanted to. However, the way the system is set up is it's one of the things you're not supposed to have contact with the victim. However, you can write whoever the prosecutor was or the judge or whatnot, and then, make that request, and then they do whatever they do. And it'll either be yes or no. I was told no. So, I never, I let it go.
How many different institutions were you
I was at 5 different prisons. I consider myself lucky because I've known a lot of guys who've literally just been shipped all around the state, 10, 15 different facilities. I just got lucky and ended up staying in this general vicinity: Baldwin, Ionia, Carson City, Jackson.
So of all those places, which one was the worst?
Which one was the worst? At that time, there was only one place that the Department of Corrections had that they housed youth offenders, and that was at the Baldwin Correctional Facility or the Michigan Youth Correctional Facility in Baldwin, Michigan. That's where I went. That's where they sent me, and I got put in a young pod, which is all 18 and under, or under 18. And I was at that prison for 4.5 years.
So what was that experience like at Baldwin? I mean, you're 15 years old.
I mean, it was kind of like a bigger version of the juvenile. Like, it was just, though you had a roommate, you know what I'm saying, doors were electronic, you know, came out maybe 2 hours a day, and that's if they have enough officers. And in that hour, you basically got to choose whatever you want to do, whether it's cook your food, walk around the unit, or take a shower. Like, you got an hour.
A day?
I think it was about 2 hours a day, but that's if they had enough officers. It was usually an hour in the morning, an hour at night. Then they never let us mix with the other pod.
Why were they so concerned about?
Well, because we were minors. All of us were under 18. It's not until you turn 18 that they ship you to another unit, and then just before you turn 20 that they finally ship you out. And I mean, it was controlled movement. Going to chow, you had to walk in the line. Going to gym, you had to walk in the line. Is
like a quasi-military?
Yeah, kind of. You know, there was no programs to take. They had a library, which was trash. We had like 9 TV channels. And so, yeah, when I wasn't watching TV or cooking food or taking a shower, like, I was sleeping. Probably out of those 4.5 years, I don't think I'd be exaggerating to say I slept over half of it away. I think my time at Baldwin was the worst. Because, I mean, it was literally a place of just kids. I think there was maybe like 60 of us in a pod, and there was only one officer. And, you know, you're literally stuck in a place where every single person there is going through hormonal change. You know what I'm saying? Testosterone going crazy. It's crazy how crazy it can get young men who are going through changes, don't have father figures, don't have, you know, because it's not like they stuck us in there and put us in these programs, you know what I'm saying, to help change us. No. If we didn't have a close enough, if our out date wasn't close enough, let's say within 3 years of going home, they left us to our own devices. The only things that we were really mandated to get off rip was a GED. I got my GED within the first year. And then it was just, as long as I wasn't causing trouble, they didn't give a damn.
So were you someone who just tried to keep quiet, keep to yourself, or did you find yourself getting involved with shit?
No, I mean, I got into a couple of situations, hence the scars. There was a time when we had a whole bunch of stuff going down with race, you know what I'm saying? It was blacks against whites, and you know what I'm saying? Despite whether you were kind of involved in that situation, like, it didn't matter. But mind you, we're dealing with kids. I tell everybody that prison is easy. Physically, prison is easy. You're taken care of, you're given food, you're given a shelter, you're given heat, you're given clothes, you're given all that stuff. Prison is hard when it comes to the mental aspect of it. They tell you when you come in and you go through orientation, not just by officers but also by inmates, is that, you know, you choose how you do your time. If you want to come in here off the streets and you want to start hanging out with those people that are doing that street shit, then that's the type of problems you're going to have that's associated with that. You come in here, you know, you mind your business, you know, you do your time, you study or do whatever, or something that keeps you out of that, and that's the type of time you have. Now, that's not saying that there may never come a situation where you might get involved in, but at the end of the day, like, you choose how your prison time is done. I didn't really have that understanding. I was just more, I had a few people I hung out with, but at the same time, it's like I stuck mostly to myself. And I got in trouble. I got in trouble a lot. It's more just because at the time, I just didn't give a shit. Like, I knew I was in the situation. Like, the time that I had to do, like, I didn't believe it. I was in that mentality that an appeal is going to get me out of here.
You thought that it was going to be an abbreviated stay.
Yeah. Doing that much time, it didn't settle in until like 6 years down the line. After about 5 years, I was able to finally start an appeal.
So by now you're 20.
Yeah. The next 3 years, just going back and forth between the courts and waiting 6 to 10 months for a response, whether they're gonna grant or deny my appeal. And then it came to the point where I had ended up getting my approved for an evidentiary hearing, and I literally waited a year for that decision, and that shit is stressful. Like, it's all I'm doing is waiting for a response.
And you don't know whether it's gonna be tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's gonna be
month.
tomorrow. So yeah, once after a year, man, I got that decision back. Like, I was just so tired of dealing with the appeal process, and like I was just like, you know what? Like, I don't give a fuck. Like, fuck it. I'm done with this shit. I'm moving on. At that point, that I kind of came to the understanding that like I'm doing this time.
When that hit you, what changed?
I chose to accept it.
So what were you doing with your time too?
Like I said, it was now that I'm thinking about it and talking about it, like it's more like I wasn't doing anything by choice that was positive or that was educational because I thought it was temporary. But then when I got my appeal denial, it was like I just got tired of doing it. And I knew that if I didn't continue doing it, because I could have, I was doing this time. And I was just like, I had already did almost half my time. And I'm like, I don't know, I was just over it. Once that kind of like hit me, it's like I was able to settle into doing my time. That's kind of like when I started to, I guess you could say I started taking initiative, but not in like the super positive sense. More and so like I wasn't waiting anymore for anybody to tell me what was gonna happen. I started playing softball. I played softball a lot. I think I was more active too there because I was going through my appeal, and I was actually doing something. When I left Riverside, got shipped to MTU in Ionia, and they call that the Gladiator School. Why? It was used to just be all young people, like between 20 and 27, like it was just all young people. And they called it Gladiator School because you better be ready to buck, fuck, or lock up. That was just the phrase. Like, you hear going to MTU, man, that's the Gladiator School. Everybody knows what the Gladiator School is. But it had kind of like cooled down a little bit by the time I got there. They had started transitioning older guys into the facility to kind of thin out the testosterone of the young ones. I still ended up finding myself at the confrontation not even a month after being there. Got all my stuff stolen, broke off my window, broke in my room, took my shit. I ended up finding the guy who took it. He was literally in the day room trying to pedal off my tapes, and I ended up getting in a fight with him. After I got in that fight with that dude who took my shit, like I didn't have any problems after that. I was at MTU for 5.5 years. After about a year or two, like I met this guy. His name was Mr. Hummel. He was special activities director, and he ran not only special activities, but he ran the educational programs. And so one day I was in there and I was talking to him, and he asked me how I was doing. I would just be like, man, I'm bored. I don't have shit to do. Like, I got a job, but I can't take any classes because, I'm still over 10 years out from my out date. And at that time, like, they instituted a new policy where you can't sign up for any type of trade or educational thing unless you're within 3 years of being released. Unless I could find something to do myself, like, I was just not doing shit. And at that time, like, I guess I could say I didn't have the understanding yet of doing shit yourself.
You mean to better yourself?
Yeah.
So what did he offer you? How did you kind of get in with him? What did he dangle in front of you that made you you change?
Well, I used to go over there because at that time we had just got these little MP3 players, little things we could download music on. And the download machine was in the special activities room. And so when I would go in there to plug in, I'd always stop and say hi and everything. I did something with him prior. I think I can't remember what it was, but that's how I knew him. When I went in there to talk to him one time, he asked me how I was. I was just like, I just told him, man, I ain't got nothing to do, man. Like, I done read all the books in the library. that even comes slightly to interest me, and now it's just like, I don't have anything to do. I can't take any classes. And so, he told me that, well, I got these other classes. You don't have to, they're not required classes by the MDOC, like the voluntary classes. If you want to take them. And so one of the first ones he put me in was, believe it was Thinking for a Change. And then Thinking for a Change led to Thinking Matters. Thinking Matters led to Cage Your Rage, and then anger management. That was when things started to change for me. I used to get into it with officers a lot. There's some officers, they tend to think they can just talk to you any type of way, and not only talk to you any type of way, but purposely try to antagonize you to get a rise out of you. And I would always fall for it. Like, they say something slick to me, I say something slick back to them. It was always in a situation where you couldn't help but think, like, why are you acting this way? Like, the only reason you're acting this way is to get a rise out of me, or because you think you better than me. Like, man, fuck you, man. Like, I'm not finna take your shit. Like, I learned how to play Dungeons and Dragons inside prison. You know what I'm saying? It was a pastime. I learned so much playing Dungeons and Dragons. Dungeons and Dragons is illegal inside prison. You're not allowed to have it. You're not allowed to play it. But we play it anyways. Like, we find sneaky ways to get the books in and all that stuff. And I remember me and my bunkie, we were down in the day room, and my bunkie was the guy who was running the game. I was the player. We were down there when second shift was transitioning from first, and the officer came in, and he was like one of those officers that I would always get into it with, right? And I seen him come in the day room. I'm just sitting there in the chair. My buddy's sitting next to me. We got a whole stack. Whole stack of books. It's like nothing but Dungeons and Dragons stuff sitting on the seat of the table. And he comes up, and I'm just sitting there, and I'm just like, here it goes. And my buddy, he ain't saying shit, because that's all his shit, A lot of that stuff is handmade. It's his own, ideas and stuff. So the officer comes up, and he's like, is this what I think it is? I don't look at him. I let my buddy, say something. And he was like, so how do you want to do this? You want me to write your ticket for it, or do you want to just throw it away? And so I looked at him, and I was like, look, you know me. Usually I'd say something crazy right now. But I'm going to say this. Promise you let this go this one time, you ain't never going to see these books down here again. You know what I'm saying? And he looked at me like he didn't say nothing. Like, you could see, wheels were turning in his head, and he was like, he looked at me and he said, Mr. Kouraimi, I do know you. And that's the first time you've said something like that or acted in that manner. I said, and I'll tell you what, just because of that, we can do that. And he was like, what's crazy is I do not mind y'all playing this. But when y'all have stacks of books down here like this, you're fronting us off. So you can have, maybe a book or two, but that shit right there, you gotta take that back upstairs. And my buddy, he's sweating bullets, right? Because he's one of them ones that he gets mad too. Yeah, man, I was like, I appreciate that. We took the shit upstairs. Mind you, we didn't come back down to play. We stuck up in the room. But it was just and that was a dude I would always butt heads with, because he always had something smart to say. But
so after that happened, it sounds to me like that was another moment for you where you were like, I don't have to get the last word in, and you can actually get what you want out of the deal by playing.
By playing the role. It's as simple as that. I spoke about, learning a lot of things in Dungeons and Dragons. I played a lot, and I think one of the appeals of it is just that it took me out of that place. And no matter what character I created, whether it was male, female, fighter, wizard, whatever it was, the world was never the same. It was a different world, different character, different experiences. And Dungeons and Dragons, I felt like was the vehicle to my maturity. I know that sounds funny, but when I created a character, like, yeah, when I first started playing Dungeons and Dragons, it was just like a hack and slash, you know, it was just to do something for fun, you know, but, you know, meeting the guy that was my bunkie at that time, like, he kind of like, he helped turn the Dungeons and Dragons, just doing it to just, you know, spend time. Like, he knew how to put a story together. He knew how to play a narrative and to think on the fly. Like, it wasn't just something where, you know, he would throw a couple monsters at you, fight it, and then do the same thing. Like, there was a very, very intricate story behind his campaigns, and like where your choices had real consequences, you know. And it was only when I started playing with him that I actually started to, until I started playing with him, I never gave a shit about my characters. They were just
like pawns.
Yeah, they were just shit on a piece of paper. All right, if this dies, then I just make another one.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But playing with him, like, I started to give my characters life, especially with, you know, it makes it a lot easier to focus more on the role-playing aspect of just the characters in the story, because it was just me and him. You know what I'm saying? So he was running the game, I was playing his story. So every character that I played, like, the entire focus was on me. So, and then I started reading author, not Terry Good, I'd read him too, but Robert Jordan, The Wheel of Time series. And this series is like 15 books, you know what I'm saying? And it's so in depth of the characters that, you know, I was reading that at the same time I started, you know, kind of getting into that mindset when I would play Dungeons and Dragons, that the more depth your character has, the more fun it is when you're role-playing a situation. It got to the point where it was like, I'd be playing two completely different characters, and yet no matter what situation would occur, would happen to them, I wouldn't have to think about how my character would react. I knew exactly how they would react because I had played them and I put so much work into them that I know what their mind frame is. I know what their mindset is. So therefore, I know what decision that they're going to make. Not mine, the character, because of its history, the things that they've been through, their beliefs. And it was as I started playing that way, like, I started taking those in-game experiences and actually learning from them how to, I've had characters that have owned their own businesses, characters have been, you know, diplomats, like, all this shit that I can do, like, I learned how to talk to people through Dungeons and Dragons. And I know it's crazy, but it's like, I learned a lot of real world social things through Dungeons and Dragons because, you know, I didn't have anybody to learn, you know, growing up. And at that time, I didn't give a shit about that. It was only when, like, I started playing this and reading and, you know, going through these classes, it was like, I don't know, it's kind of like I had, like, a substitute teacher.
It sounds to me, too, like as you talk about infusing life into the characters, instead of them just being these little one-dimensional things, you are also creating a life of your own.
Yeah, like, yeah. It's,
there's a parallel there.
It is, because I could sit here and literally go through almost every character I've played after I kind of started playing that way and tell you who they were, how they grew up, tell you what type of decisions they would make, why they would make them. You know what I'm saying? They're not just names on a paper to me. It's crazy. I know this. to people,
it's not crazy at all.
Well, to people who've never played it or don't even get into the concept of video games, you know what I'm saying? Like, take the Game of Thrones for example, where the Game of Thrones just doesn't kill only people that you expect to be killed. Like, they get you invested in characters, and then they kill them, and then you're literally heartbroken.
Right, because we forge a relationship with those characters.
And so that's how I was feeling. That's how I felt about these characters. Like, when I was in like a situation where there was like, man, I don't know if I'm gonna get out of this. Like, unless it was one of those characters that was just like, fuck it, we ride till I die. I would literally be like sweating bullets, like trying to figure out, damn, okay. So just evaluating the situation, and because not only did I not want my character to die, my character didn't want to die. You know what I'm saying? That's how I saw it. Like, when I create these characters are not me. These characters are their own. They're a piece of me because they're
an extension of you.
Yeah, no matter what character you make, no matter what type of, no matter what gender, no matter what occupation or skill set or whatever, there's always an aspect of you that gets into the character. Whether it's something that you've always desired to do or an ideal that you believe in, there's always a piece that goes into the character. And I feel like to disregard that, like to just treat it like it's nothing, especially with the amount of work that goes in just creating a basic character.
Right.
I think one of the most important things that I took away, that I kind of learned just from Dungeons and Dragons is, because I'd always had the notion, but playing these characters and to be able to do the things that these characters were able to do, whether it was, saving the world or, going to war or falling in love, you know what I'm saying? It made me believe that if they can do it, I can do it. Because I am doing it. Which is,
Yeah.
like,
They're
if I have enough patience to play a character who has patience, then I have patience. Why can't I utilize it? If I have a character that, takes the time to study, and I give up like in-game time for my character to study, while everybody else is playing, my character's just studying. Like, why? What is it about? Why is the character doing that? Like, you gotta know why. Well, he knows what he's got to do, and it's just these little lessons here and there that are sometimes subliminal. Like, you don't get it till like later on. I think that's where like my path of kind of understanding for myself and where I was starting to move, where I was starting to go, started. And so I think it was 28 when I got shipped from MTU. They sent me to Carson City, level 1, which was a dorm. Oh, so hated it. I mean, I go from a 2-man cell with my own door key, to literally like an office cubicle setting with 8 guys in it, in an entire barn. So that's just like it was literally like a big barn and just 8 box sections. Yeah. I hated it. Oh, I hated it. 'Cause it was like, there was no privacy, like nothing. You always had to worry about somebody moving around, so much more unsanitary. But after I got there, it took me a minute to adjust just to the whole new thing. But like I said, I had already fell into that kind of easy jail. I didn't deal with the bullshit. I stayed out of trouble. Well, no, actually, MT was the last place I got a ticket. There was a conscious aspect to it, but it wasn't like, I'm staying out of the bullshit. It was just more, I kind of just stayed away from it because it was like, that shit is what always used to get me in trouble.
Well, plus you probably grew tired of it.
Yeah, I did.
Just like mentally exhausted from.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I was just, talking about, just when you're in those types of crowds, that's usually all the conversations are about, is just about bullshit. Because one's always out trying to outdo the other, and, it's it's too much work. It's too much work anymore. Once I got to Krymson City, I got a job in a factory. I worked in the factory the whole time I was at Krymson City. This is where I learned about the Prison Creative Arts program at U of M.
Okay.
I heard about it through a flyer about their literary review project that they have every year, where people incarcerated, they send them writings or journals, whatever, and then a panel goes over them and they choose like some of the best stuff to put in this journal every year. And so I submitted a couple pieces. Mind you, I had even started writing. When I started playing Dungeons & Dragons, I kind of just started writing. I sent in a couple poems, and then I sent in this one little story about these two little kids. Mind you, to give you some context, like me and my buddies, every Wednesday we would go out under the pavilion, and we would choose a word, just some random word. Someone would choose one, and depending on the week, we would either write or draw with that as its template, whatever comes to mind, And it just so happened that day the word was house, and we had to write. And so I wrote this is literally half a page. It wasn't even that long. And it was about these two 6-year-old kids, boy and a girl, going up into this mountain and going in this cave. And inside the cave, it opens up into this vast, valley. And the valley's completely surrounded on all sides by a sheer, razor sharp rocks, and there's no way to get down there. And it's at nighttime, valleys, the little things clear, and the little boy, they're at the edge looking down at it as the clouds are going over the sky. And the little girl says to the boy, says, just watch, And so they kind of both get down and they're leaning over the edge, looking down into the valley. And the boy said, Jesse's like, what's, why? And she's like, shh, just watch. And so the clouds roll over and kind of allow the moonlight and the stars to shine down in this valley. This ghostly cabin appears. And smoke coming from the chimney, light coming from inside where you can actually see faint shadows dancing on the curtains. And, the clouds end up rolling back over as soon as it does. As soon as it covers the moonlight and the stars, the cabin disappears. The boy looks at Rachel and he's like, what is it? It's the same as it was before. And she looks at him, she was like, I know, but haven't you ever wondered? And that was it. That was it. I painted the scene, didn't give no explanation, nothing. And so I sent that one in, and I ended up getting a response some months later, and talking about just the different style of my writing and why certain pieces did get in. And then I got this letter from a Dr. Kouraimi, who at the time was at the University of Michigan. And he told me that the story about the boy and the girl was one of the most intriguing things that he had ever read. And how he was like, that's it just sounds like it's the start of something even bigger. And I thought that was cool. I didn't put too much thought into it at that time. In my mind, man, that was just some shit, I wrote for 30 minutes under a pavilion. Then I just started sending writings in. It definitely felt really good to get that type of feedback because I had never openly shared anything like that, and especially to people who that's what they do. You know, but like I said, the words, the response was cool, but I didn't do anything else with it. By this time, I had got myself a clerk position within the factory. I had my own office, computer, you know, and I don't know what it was. Like, it was in January of 2016, when we had this new lady that was working in the factory here. She was, you know, our supervisor. You know, I went to her. I just started thinking about school for some reason. I think it was like a book I picked up, because at that time I had been doing a lot of reading about Japan, you know, Buddhism, and I can't tell you when, but it's like I got the school itch, right? Or more so a curiosity. And so I started looking into stuff, you know. I think one of the things that kind of had me really into it was I got this book called the Big Scholarship Book. It's like it had scholarships for everything, you know. This is like, for those who remember the phone book, it was that thick. I ended up going to work one day, and I went to my boss's office, and I sat down and I talked to her. I said, hey, I'm actually, thinking about going to school. Like, could you help me look up some information? Because they had internet access, we didn't. And she was cool enough, you know, she helped me, you know, figure some information out and all that. Then the time came, it was July of 2016. This time I still got a little less than 4 years left. So I hear this rumor that Pell Grants have been reinstituted for people inside prison. And so I'm like, what? So the next day I go to work, and I say, hey man, you know, I talked to my boss and say, can you look this up for me? I want to see if this is legit. You know, this is rumors going around all the time, you know, policy change and whatnot, and good time. This is always, most of the time it's always bullshit. And so she ended up looking it up, you know, Pell Grant, about the Pell Grants being reinstituted, and sure as shit, like Obama initiated what he calls the Second Chance Pell Grant program, where he basically provided enough funds for up to 12,000 individuals within the entire United States to apply for a Pell Grant, go to college, just certain colleges that were chosen within each state. Now, at that time, I didn't really know about any of the specifics. I just saw what colleges were going to be participating, which was Jackson, Delta, and Mott. So I wrote Mott and Delta just because I'm from Saginaw, you know, they're the closest. I got a response from Mott saying that the facility that I'm at isn't doing the college programs, and they told me to get in touch with the transfer coordinator. And as soon as I saw get in touch with the transfer coordinator, I was like, oh, that shit ain't gonna happen. like, cause they don't move you just because you ask. It was about a week later that a whole bunch of guys from my unit got called over to the school. One of my buddies, he was one of the ones that got called over. He came back, and I was like, hey, bro, like, what'd you go over there? What'd they want all y'all for? And he showed me this application that the department put out. And so I'm like, well, shit, I need one of these. But I was so, like, insane about it, I literally wrote down the questions, gave him back his application, and then I wrote a kite to the school. I was like, hey, you know, I want one of these applications. So I didn't get a response at first. And so after about a week and a half, I was still not getting a response. I wrote him again. I said, hey, you know, I want one of these applications. Like, I heard y'all had, like, and then it's crazy because half of the people that went over there refused. They didn't want to do it. And so I'm like, I was like, I know y'all got spots because people refuse to do it. So I'm telling you I want to do it. And finally the principal wrote me back and was like, you know, I can't give you an application because you're not on the list of people who have been approved to take it. And I'm sitting here confused because I'm like, man, I meet all the goddamn criteria. Take it free, you know what I'm saying, within this amount of time, you know what I'm saying, doing this, like, what the fuck you mean? I got my GED, like, I don't understand, like, what don't I fit? And so I had just I was over it. And so I wrote Mott and Delta back, and I was like, look, You know what I'm saying? Send me all your information. I'm going to try to go to school on my own dime, you know, because at this point I'm thinking like, man, I got this book of scholarships, man. Even if I can just get one of them, man, that might let me get into something. Now, mind you, this happened through like a span of 3 months, just going back and forth with these kites and all that. And then all of a sudden, like, I get this letter and this package in a manila envelope from the Michigan Department of Corrections Education Department. So I'm like, what the fuck am I getting something from here for? You know, so I open it up, and it's actually a photocopy of the letter that I sent my community college, and with all the Pell Grant program information, and with a little sticky note saying I was on the list. So I'm like, I'm excited, but at the same time, I don't know what I'm excited about, because I'm like, am I on the list to get an application, or am I on the list to participate? It's like, you know.
So what happened?
And so literally like a week later, I got called over to the school with some of the other guys that had went over there prior. And we met a guy from Jackson College, and when everybody got in there, he was basically like, you know, you're being called over here to tell you that, you know, y'all have been accepted to Jackson College, and you're here to fill out your financial aid stuff. And so mind you, I'm ecstatic because I didn't even fill out an application, right? And, you know, so I filled it out, and I was just like I was ready to go. It was exactly a week after that we all got rolled out at the same time. It was like 50-something of us rolled out to Jackson, Cooper Street. Yeah, I was literally in school. I got there December 17th. I was in school for the winter.
So once you started taking classes, like, what was that like for you?
My first semester, I took art history, Renaissance to present, 20th century American history, I think, and then English 131. And it was cool. I loved it. Like, I mean, I was literally reading so much of these books, like, because I didn't know how to study. I mean, mind you, like, I hadn't been to school since I was 16. I was 31, you know, and so, but I'm doing it. I'm getting this shit done, you know, going to class. I've never missed one class. And, you know.
So you got bit by the bug. You were hungry.
Yeah.
You were
you know,
thriving on this.
And it's funny because growing up, 4.0s were like legendary, epic. You had to get a 4. If you got a 4.0, you was genius, right? That's just, I always thought that it was just like impossible to get a 4.0 just because of the level at which I had heard it associated with. And so I do all my schoolwork, you know, I get good grades on all my stuff. And it wasn't until like I got my first report card, it was like all 4.0s. And I'm like, man, get the fuck out of here, right? I was literally like, man, like, because I thought two things. One, this shit is not hard to get a 4.0. It's not. All you got to do is put in the work. But I also had the more arrogant thoughts like, damn, I'm a motherfucking genius. Like, I would like to go with that one, but I know, like, it's more just because I ended up seeing the difference throughout my 3 years of going to college there. Just not only witnessing my own academic schoolwork and the effort that I put in, but I also witnessed other people's efforts and why to them a 4.0 was impossible. Out of all my time in class, I've gotten only 3.5s. The rest of them all have been 4.0s. One was for 20th century American literature. And we all know how that goes. Then my international cinema this last semester, my first semester, and no, this was the summer of 2015. Me and a few other guys were taking Calculus 1 in 6 weeks, and then Calculus 2 in the second half of the summer. And I tell you what, like, out of those two instances of me getting the 3.5s with the 20th century American literature and the international cinema, I was mad at those classes. I earned that motherfucking 3.5 in calculus too. Believe that. Like, that was the only 3.5. I thought I was getting less than that. When I saw that 3.5, I was so happy.
So you were in school for 3 years before you got out?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so by then you must have had close to an associate's degree.
I can have my associates, yeah. Yeah, I got my associates in arts.
Dude, that must have felt fucking awesome.
You know, yes and no. I mean, it's yes and at the same time, it's like, for me, it's inconsequential, in the sense that, like, even when I first started out, even when I first had the notion, man, I want to go to school, it was never the degree. Like, the degree don't mean shit to me. Like, the degree is just a piece of paper to give other people, for other people to give you validation, in my opinion. And I don't plan on working for anybody for the rest of my life. You know what I'm saying? For me, school is all about, you know, meeting new people, the connections, the networking, the skills that I learn. Like, I'm not working for that piece of paper. Like, I'm working because despite whether I get that paper or not, I'm gonna tell stories. Because I always told myself, if I ever got an opportunity that I would have to quit school, like, I would quit school with a heartbeat if it was one of those opportunities. To Carson City, that was actually a prison that University of Michigan PCAP actually came in to do workshops.
Which you already had a connection with.
Yeah, and so as soon as I got there, it's like, I immediately signed up. They had 2 theaters and 2 creative writings, and I legit finagled it to where every semester I was in one of those classes, and I made it happen. Through these programs and through school, I met so many beautiful people. When I was in class, or when I was in, you know, one of these workshops, is where I met one of my good friends. That's what my week. That's what I came to look forward to every week, and to be able to speak with people, conversations outside the norm, just the ability to even speak to a female, you know what I'm saying, is completely, you know, different, because you're not allowed necessarily to have just like a conversation with a female guard. Like, that's not, just that aspect alone was just like, it was almost like a gold mine, if you will. You know, to where talking to them taught me how to actually converse with a female, other than, you know, young girls when I was younger, you know, as a teenager. I'd say during the last 6 years, like, all the changes I felt like was happening at once, with, you know, working, school, and on the side, you know, coming up with my own ideas and stories, and becoming a Buddhist, and just all the things that I had delved my mind into. Like, everything was transitioning, and by the time I got to a year, you know, I was still in school, just about to complete my degree, only because, like, I had been choosing different classes. It was probably like January of 2019. I had it in my mind, man, I'm going to Ann Arbor. Like, I wanted to deal with PCAP. I wanted to, you know what I'm saying? I heard there's a lot of organizations and stuff down there, and a lot of the people that I wanted to be around were down there. And so, you know, I set my mind to, you know, parole there. I didn't want to go back to Saginaw. I knew, despite there being Delta College there, Delta College didn't have what I want, you know? And Saginaw legit has nothing I want. You know, there's nothing there for me but the potential of me falling back into that same shit. So within the next year, I legit wrote colleges. I spent like $300-400 literally just on phone calls and stamps, writing different organizations, trying to establish a network down in Washtenaw County somewhere. Out of, I don't know, I wrote so many places, man. It was at least 50 different places here. I ended up getting in contact with this organization called Humanity for Prisoners. And so I had wrote them, I was like, hey, look, I'm about to go up for parole. I'm trying to get housing set up down in, you know, Washtenaw and da-da-da-da-da. I was like, you know, I was wondering if you could help me out with that. And so he ends up sending me this number for a place called A Brighter Way. He was like, look, call him, and if you can't get through, let me know, and I'll call on your behalf. And so I'm like, all right. So I get off the phone with him, and immediately, like, I have a thought, like, I ain't got no money on the phone. He ain't finna answer. He's not gonna answer the phone. Like, they're not gonna just answer the collect call. My first mind was like, man, I'm just finna tell him I'm gonna call, and I'm gonna have him call. Immediately right after, I was like, why would I not call? Like, just fucking try it. Like, and so I did. I called, and the guy ended up answering. We only had a free minute, but he was like, well, hurry up, let me get your information, and I'll get in contact with you on the JPay. It was through him that I met, other organizations, Youth Justice Funds, Nation Outside, and it's just like, that seed was like the sprout and everything. I got my own place now, I got my own car, and, here I am with this stuff, like, knowing I wanted to get out and hit the ground running. As time's going by, I go see the parole board in July.
Are you out yet or not?
No. So July 2019, I go see the parole board, and I ended up having the good friend of mine that I met through PCAP, the professor. She came up. I asked her to come up to be my representative because, she was part of the program, and I was going to be getting out dealing with that. And plus, she knew the other guy that I was talking to, and so I wanted somebody there that was going to be able to attest to. Not only have we literally been in the same class for like 3 years. You know what I'm saying? Like, she knew and saw the progression, and, I just wanted someone in there that I knew was going to be able to keep their shit, because I knew my mom probably wouldn't. So,
and she could speak on your behalf
yeah,
as a professional.
Yeah. And so.
But, dude, by then, fuck, you had a degree.
Yeah.
You've been involved with all these extracurricular things.
I mean, that was the crazy thing. Like, I had no worry that they were going to flop me, because they have no reason to. Like, my record is spotless for at least a minimum of 10 years. You know what I'm saying? I'm doing all this stuff. I have support, regardless of whether it's family support or not. You know what I'm saying? I have all these people out here saying that they're willing to be there, but there's still that level of anxiety there, knowing that you're now in a situation where you say one fucked up thing, right, that they don't like. They can, well, we'll give you a deferral. We're going to let you think about that. Or, we'll see you in another 12 to 24 months. You know what I'm saying? So regardless of how much I was just like confident that they was going to get, because I tell everybody, man, you a little nervous? Like, man, hell no. I'm more anxious to get it over with than I am nervous about, standing in front of them, because I know what I'm going to say. Like, I got past the point where I didn't need to convince him. Like, I didn't need to tell some elaborate scheme story. Like, look, dude, like, I was 15. Look what I was doing then, and look at what I'm doing now. So when I'm in this meeting with this parole guy, and he ends up asking me, like, halfway through, he says, so you said in your statement that you saw, the guy go in first, but over here it says that you showed up after the other 3 got there. He was like, I'm confused. Like, I would, I don't understand what's happening here. Like, you're saying one thing, but you're saying another here. And he caught me off guard. Like, I was like, oh shit. Like, and I'm trying to remember what he's talking about. So I just looked at him. I was like, look, to be honest, I may have said that, or I may have said a whole bunch of other stuff. And I told him, I said, man, as far as I know, that's true or not true, because at that time, with what was happening, I was doing and saying everything that I could to take the attention off of me. And I couldn't tell you what in there is true or what's not. But this is what I can tell you. This is what I did. And I literally, like, broke down, like, from the moment of going up the stairs and saying that I stood in the doorway only during the courtroom, like, I broke down everything that I had did past that point. Like, I just didn't stay in the doorway. I just didn't, I just wasn't there shook, scared. No, I was participating in that shit. I was one of the ones that was threatening him with a cane, trying to get the combination. And I was like, You know, as far as attesting to what somebody else did, I can't. I can't really give you 100% answer, but I can give you 100% answer with what I did. You know, and so he was like, all right. And so he let my, rep speak, and, she started talking about, just everything that I was doing and what I was going to have available to me. And he wasn't even paying attention to her. And he's because we see him on a teleconference. Like, they don't come, they don't do in person no more. And so he's not even looking at the screen, and he's just typing. And so after she gets done saying what she was saying, he looks up and he says, I'm sorry, miss, but I just want to let you know that it wasn't that I wasn't paying attention to you. I was just typing up his parole stipulations. He said, all right, I came in here with the decision that I was going to give you your parole today. And he was like, but when I started seeing these contradictions, like, I started to second guess myself. He was like, however, your explanation convinced me. He was like, I hope you do good. I hope everything works out. He was like, you got anything else to say? I was like, nope. So I got the fuck up and left with my rep. And it was crazy because not only does that guy not, like, tell people that he's going to give them a parole, but he told me he was going to give me my parole outright. Like, I didn't even have to wait for my decision. That's when the anxiety started, not of going home, but the anxiety of having to wait to go home. Like, I remember guys asking me all the time, like, every time I got closer, so, man, you getting scared? I'm like, man, hell no, I'm ready to go. It's like, do you know how much stuff I got to do? Like, I started making plans, like, literally of, like, the first 3 days of what I was going to be doing. First, literally, before I get to that, mind you, I didn't end up finding a place down here. Ended up having to go to Grand Blanc to live with a good friend of mine. Like, I could never repay her for, open her doors to me, because those first few weeks were hectic. So the time comes, it's like a week, right? And everything's going good. My stress level's getting up there. I'm getting tired of other people's shit. Like, just listening to bullshit. I'm ready to go. And I was having problems with my WCC application.
Was there somebody waiting for you?
Yeah, my friend. I didn't want to have. I wanted to have my mom come pick me up, but at the same time, I didn't. I didn't want. The last memory my mom has of me out in the streets is the police, coming to get. And then the next time she sees me, I'm in a jail. You know what I'm saying? And despite how much I would have loved for her to be there, I was just like, man, I don't want my mom's first memory of me being even though it'd be probably like one of the most glorious memories she's ever had, I want her first memory of me to be me walking in her house door, And so, I had my friend come pick me up because she was the one I was going to be staying with. Yeah, it came, like, I had my shit all ready to go. Like, I didn't have nothing left. I gave everything away, TV, MP5 player, like, all that shit. The only thing I had that I was taking with me out the door was my files that I had in a little folder, the ones that I needed, and a set of street clothes. And I got up there at, like, they called me up 7:30 maybe. It was right after first shift came on. And so I'm sitting up there. There was maybe like 20 of us getting ready to leave. A couple of the guys that was leaving with me was from my unit, so we're sitting there chatting it up and shit. I'm like legit like trying to focus on everything other than the thought that these motherfuckers might be playing a trick on me, right? And so get up, get in line, and I don't know. It was like no. As the closer I got to the door, like, because we had to go through one door coming from control center, then we had to go through a section, so we had to walk through this door back here, then come through other door. We sat in here for I don't know how long, and through this door you can see the entryway of the prison, where you can see all these people, like, waiting for the people to come out to take them home and shit. And we sitting there for, like, 30 minutes. Right. And because they're going through names and numbers. Like, you literally got to recite your name like 3 times and then your prison number, and just so that way they can double check that it's you. Finally, they let us through the doors. And my friend was there, like, She wasn't crying. Like, I wasn't crying. Like, I was just ready to fucking go. Like, she brought me some shoes, and I think, so we went to I went to sign the paperwork and everything for my discharge, and then when I came back out, like, I was about to give my friend a hug, right? And the sergeant was looking at me. He was like, "Hey, man, just get the fuck out of here." Like, just there's so many people in there. He's like, "Just go, just get the fuck." I was like, "Man, you ain't got to tell me twice. Bye." Right? So
you get outside the gate. You're with this girl. Dude, then what?
We literally give each other the quickest hug and jump, like, literally in her car, and it's messed up because I end up forgetting that I put my file folder on top of the car, and I forget about it. And so we literally pull out of the prison parking lot, and all of a sudden, like, I'm looking for my thing, and I just happen to look in the mirror, and all my shit just went all over the road. So we had to pull over. Mind you, the state police station is literally right across the street. We had to pull in that parking lot. So I'm like, fuck, just left prison, pull in the parking lot, please. And so, but anyways, we ended up getting all that stuff. And like I said, as soon as I got done seeing my PO, like, we went straight all day dealing with DHHS, Secretary of State. So I got my health care, my food stamps, my license, my state ID.
Who hooks you up with all that shit?
I made all those appointments myself. Well, had my friend make the appointments for me. I basically told her, I said, "Look, I need you to do this, and do this." You know what I'm saying? All that ridiculousness. Then the next day, I think I got like an hour and a half sleep that night. The next day, it was on and popping again. We went to Jackson College to get stuff taken care of. I was up here most of the day at Washtenaw, just trying to get everything in order for the winter semester, which was only like 3 weeks away. You know, then I went and did some stuff at the U of M campus, and by the third day, man, like, you know, I literally had everything that I needed to get done, and it was a lot, man. One of the things I think was the crux behind just the change in mindset was the fact that, you know, those instances in my prison time, you know, when dealing with that officer, with that confrontation and not getting confrontational, you know, writing the colleges to go to school and knowing I didn't have the money, but knowing I wanted to do it, I was so persistent that they went above like the school and went straight to the DOC to get me in college, you know, and then getting those 4.0s the first semester. Like, each one of these successive events that worked or that got done because I took initiative and went for it, it began to set in stone that I can do whatever the fuck I want to do. Everything that happens to me is my decision. Everything that I do, everything that happens to me, like, it's all, I can control what I do. And it has taught me the lesson that at the end of the day, no matter what happens, I am the only one that is responsible for my actions. That's one of the things that I used to do when I was a kid. Like, I would blame everybody else for the shit that was happening to me. Like, it was never my fault. It was always, oh, well, I wouldn't have done this if such and such, or I didn't do this for this. You know, it was always some type of excuse. And now,
was it a blame thing?
Yeah, it was just like, it was easier to blame other people than to face that, you know, I did that dumb shit, you know. And so now it's like everything that I do, like, even though I still have some procrastination, you know, here and there, but everything that I'm working for that I want, I know I can have. I know I can get, because look at what I've gotten so far. And nobody gave that shit to me. Like, people sometimes even say that, you know, the help that I was given by these organizations to get, you know, a semblance of where I'm at, like, they didn't reach out to me. I reached out to them. Like, I reached out and put the work in, wrote them, kept in contact with them, came down. Now I'm working for one of these organizations, you know, kind of like on the side of another one. If you want to do something, no one else controls whether you do that or not but you. Because at the end of the day, it comes down to your decisions, it comes down to what you want, and it comes down to what you're willing to do to get it. If you know you want to have $1 million by the end of the year, you better be willing to do what it takes to get $1 million by the end of the year. And it doesn't just take thinking about it. Like, you have to do it. There are too many people in this world of so many different creeds and colors and backgrounds and religions that have made it for someone to tell me that I will never be able to be what I want to be. It's too much proof. It's not even that I'm glad I got caught, you know, because I would have no idea where I would be at, like, if I hadn't got caught for that. Like, would it have continued on an escalation? Like, just where would I be at in my mindset now? You know, I can't help but think that it'd be nowhere good. So many different paths could have been laid out for me that it had not been hard to imagine me taking any one of those roads. Me and my friend were talking the other night about the American dream. And I was talking to him, I believe in the American dream. I believe in what America, the ideal of America stands for. And she was like, well, I think you might be putting more faith than you should into something like that. I was like, if I don't, then that means that I don't believe in the thought that I can be anything that I want. And if I don't believe in that, what else do I got? Because the situation that I'm in with my criminal history, with the strikes that I already got against me, with the doors that I already have closed, I have to think that way. If I don't, I'm never gonna go nowhere. I have to be able to believe that I can do whatever I want to do as long as I'm willing to put in the work. You know, it's hard. It's not easy just because, you know, you make the decision. Like, it's hard work. Like, I find myself struggling all the time, like, just trying to juggle the stuff that I got going. And yet, after each successive thing that I finish or that I put into play or that the next piece needs to be put into play, like, it just reaffirms my belief that anybody can be whatever they want.